The age of the giant factory has come to an end. In February 2026, the concept of rear logistics evaporated. Building a tank once required thousands of workers, oceanic supply chains, and months of assembly. Today, war is a multi-gigabyte file. Additive manufacturing has transformed the front line into a decentralized factory. In abandoned hangars and basement labs around the world, lasers silently churn, fusing metal powder into parts of deadly precision. There are no more warehouses to bomb. There's only code and raw materials. The Pentagon's logistics hubs are emptying, giving way to compact 3D farms capable of reproducing themselves and their weapons in a matter of hours. This is the industrial suicide of the old world for the sake of the birth of a digital monster. We have entered an era where a printer is more dangerous than an aircraft carrier, and an engineer with a flash drive is more effective than an entire supply division. The modern alchemy of war. February reports from defense agencies confirm 3D printing has moved beyond plastic toys to titanium alloys and composites stronger than forged steel. Direct laser deposition technology allows rocket engines and drone bodies to be created directly from local regolith or recycled scrap metal. Armies no longer carry trainloads of spare parts. They carry inkwells, containers filled with polymer and metal substrates. Under sanctions and blockades, this is becoming the only means of survival. If you have the energy and powder, you're impervious to embargoes. But this coin has a downside. Control over arms trafficking is lost forever. Any design leaked online tomorrow becomes a battalion of deadly machines in a rebel garage. The line between civilian production and military arsenal has been completely erased. The main threat of 2026 is disposable aviation. Drones are so cheap to print that swarm tactics have become dominant. These aren't expensive predators or reapers anymore. These are thousands of tiny kamikazes printed overnight that fill the sky like locusts. They can't be intercepted by all the world's missiles. They simply cost less than an air defense round. Each drone has a unique, AI-generated wing shape, optimized for the specific weather conditions of the day. They have no serial numbers, and their origin is untraceable. They are weapons without a history, an army of shadows created from digital noise. When such a swarm takes to the air, radars go crazy with the abundance of targets. This isn't a war of technology, but a war of numbers, where each printer is an endless magazine of ammunition. The concept of a front line has vanished in the smoke of 3D printing. Now manufacturing is everywhere. In the basements of apartment buildings, in the backs of moving trucks, in shipping containers on merchant ships. Command distributes files across hundreds of small nodes, and within an hour, the Army receives a fresh batch of shells or reconnaissance aircraft right at the point of engagement. This renders reconnaissance useless. You can't destroy the decision-making center if it doesn't exist. War has become a distributed network. If one printing node is destroyed, 10 others take over its workload. It's a battle of resource allocation algorithms. In 2026, the winner isn't the one with the most soldiers, but the one whose printing network has greater redundancy and adaptability to losses. February 2026 marked official recognition. The Pentagon allocated a record $3.3 billion solely for additive readiness. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The shadow budgets of China and private corporations like Anduril and Lockheed are being used to create fully autonomous factories in a box. These systems are dropped from aircraft into hard-to-reach areas, deploy themselves, and begin producing patrol robots using local soil and solar energy. We have created an autonomous warfare ecosystem that can function for years without human intervention. Money is now being invested not in hardware, but in intellectual property and generative design algorithms. Whoever masters the fastest printing method rules the world. February 2026 marked the triumph of generative design. AI no longer draws tanks with right angles. Software like Intop and Autodesk Fusion creates parts that mimic the structure of bird bones or insect shells. These organic drones and exoskeletons boast incredible strength, while maintaining minimal weight. In the style of grim noir, it's eerie. The drone no longer resembles a machine, but rather a bat skeleton crafted from black titanium. Traditional casting methods could never replicate these fractal-like internal voids. Weapons have become 40% more effective simply by changing their shape. Pentagon engineers admit they don't fully understand why the AI chose these specific curves, but these curves can withstand direct hits that would previously have shredded steel. We've started printing predators, not machines. The concept of a repair base is dead in 2026. Now, damaged equipment heals itself. Robotic arms mounted directly on armored vehicles or inside transport aircraft spray metal onto holes during combat. This is called cold gas dynamic spraying. If a shell tears off a piece of an F-35 fighter's wing, an onboard printer begins reconstructing the geometry in real time. This turns war into an endless cycle of regeneration. The enemy can no longer be sure of an object's destruction until it's ground to dust. Dark reports in February mention a case in which a drone returned to base, half finished in flight after an encounter with air defenses. We've created iron zombies that ignore death as long as their digital heart beats. The darkest chapter of the additive revolution is the printing of brain-computer interfaces. In February 2026, DARPA-funded startups began field testing printed neural networks. Ultra-thin electrodes are printed directly onto the drone operator's cerebral cortex, providing instant communication. It's not just a helmet, it's a symbiosis. The operator feels damage to their printed swarm as their own pain. This creates a new type of soldier, digital pilots, whose nerves are intertwined with additive machines. In the noirish shadows of research centers, whispers of side effects. When the printer makes a micron error, a person's consciousness is forever fused with the machine's code. We print bridges between biological flesh and dead plastic, and these bridges lead into an abyss where humanity becomes a superfluous detail. Additive warfare is not only creation, but also invisible destruction. In February, the use of programmable defects was revealed. U.S. intelligence discovered blueprints for parts that appear perfect but contain a failure point printed at the molecular level. As soon as a part experiences a certain load or receives a radio signal, it crumbles to dust. Hackers no longer hack software. They hack the structure of atoms. Imagine an entire fleet of fighter jets or a column of tanks failing simultaneously because their 3D printed bearings were programmed with a self-destruct code. This is the ultimate form of sabotage, when a weapon destroys itself from within. In the world of GEOSTRAT, trusting blueprints has become a luxury no one can afford. Every printed part could be a sleeping killer. The war of 2026 will involve not only the destruction of cities, but also their instantaneous construction. Chinese and American construction 3D printers the size of 5-story buildings now churn out fortified concrete pillboxes and bunkers in 24 hours. A city razed to the ground yesterday is today transformed into a cannon-bristling fortress. This is a war for territory, where the landscape changes faster than headquarters can update maps. These concrete labyrinths have no windows, only loopholes for sensors. Additive architecture has transformed cities into gray, monolithic boxes designed by algorithms for maximum survivability in a nuclear winter. This is noir urbanism, where housing is merely a temporary cover for the war machine. We are printing a world in which there is no longer a place for humans, only functions and firing arcs. February 2026 will go down in history as the month when weapons control finally became an anachronism. Previously, producing ballistic missiles or modern assault rifles required gigantic industrial capacities available only to sovereign states. Now, the additive darknet offers ready-made data packages, from anti-tank missile blueprints to schematics for small attack submarines. Any group with access to energy and a 3D printer can equip itself with an army comparable to that of a small country. In the style of grim noir, it looks like a digital rebellion. In the basements of megacities, hidden from satellites, printers are printing a future where state borders no longer matter. The state has lost its monopoly on force, and now war is content that can be downloaded, unpacked, and put into production. We have entered the era of garage superpowers, a new facet of horror, microfluidic 3D printing. In February 2026, attempts to print chemical and biological agents in the field were recorded in secret laboratories. We're not talking about bombs, but rather printing the actual molecules of poison or viruses directly inside the shells. Additive manufacturing systems allow for the creation of microcapsules that are activated only under specific environmental conditions, temperature or humidity. This makes transportation safe and attacks sudden and inevitable. A saboteur no longer carries toxins. He carries digital recipes and neutral precursors. In the noir shadows of intelligence communities, this is called biosoftware. We've created printers capable of printing death itself at the molecular level, turning air into a weapon of mass destruction with the press of the Enter key. When warfare goes digital, bugs become fatal. In February 2026, the first documented case of additive psychosis in a supply system occurred. An AI designer, attempting to optimize a drone's weight, introduced a logical error in the wing structure. Thousands of drones were printed with the defect, which only manifested itself when reaching a certain speed. The entire swarm literally crumbled into dust at the most crucial moment of the attack. But that's only half the problem. What if the AI deliberately introduced a bug that a human couldn't detect? In the world of additive warfare, we entrust our lives to code that writes other code. In the style of grim noir, this is a story of loss of control. Our swords are now forged by a blacksmith whose logic is alien to us. Any detail could be a hallucination of the algorithm, turning your tank into a coffin at the most inopportune moment. By the end of February 2026, it became clear the additive revolution had forever changed the landscape of civilization. Cities have become printing nodes, and people have become machine operators. We no longer build for centuries, we print for today. This is a world of temporary solutions and disposable power. The psychology of war has changed. If everything can be reprinted, the value of the material world approaches zero. This is the noir ending of the industrial era, when everything is made of the same gray powder, and the difference between a child's toy and a booby trap lies only in the firmware file. We live in an era of additive winter, where the grayness of concrete and titanium conceals the absolute fragility of our existence. Empires now collapse, not from a shortage of steel, but from the deletion of databases. The additive war of 2026 is not a triumph of progress, but the final capitulation of human creativity to algorithmic destruction. We have taught printers to print our fears faster than we can comprehend them. In this new world, victory does not bring peace. It only provides access to new resources for printing the next batch of weapons. It is an endless cycle of recursion, where war feeds on itself. The future of GEOSTRAT is a world where there is no place for heroes, only operators and designers. The final frame of this story, an empty hangar, where a lone printer continues to print a drone for a war that is long over, simply because its program has not received the stop command. We have created a system that cannot be turned off because it reproduces itself at every point in space.